Hello everybody, it is me, Miss Marable. I hope you are all okay. So this is lesson 2 of Marriage and the Family, and it is on sexual relationships. So guys, do you think sex is important to our society? And we've included 2 images on your intro page, because really in our UK society, Western society, you can't really escape sexuality. Sex is pretty much everywhere, if you look in the media. So I've included Cardi B and Magic Mike as 2 examples of how sexuality and kind of, using the body in a way to kind of promote desire, essentially, is used throughout. I mean, music videos, and if you go on Instagram, the amount of people that pose in the most weirdest ways, like, ooh, yeah, it's all to do with sexuality. So this is really the ethical side of the GCSE course, thinking about what is right and what is wrong when it comes to sexual behaviour. So if we, look at Cardi B, we look at, Magic Mike, is this okay to be exposing their body in such a way? Should we cover up? Is it okay to have sex with lots of different people without commitment? Or should we save sex for the person that we love and only have sex with that one person, and hoping that obviously the love will last forever, preferably within marriage? So of course, if we go back thousands of years, when Christianity obviously took a lot of its teachings and beliefs from Judaism around sexual activity, it very much is within marriage. And if we kind of think about it from like a population control point of view, that was really, really important for people really to only mate with one other person and therefore to look after the children, because there wasn't any contraception around then. So if you had sex, it was very open to the possibility of having babies. So if you had sex with lots of different people, you're going to have lots of different babies, and who's going to look after the children? You're going to have lots of children who are without food, are without shelter. Lots of people would not take on board and take care of a child who was classed as illegitimate, as in it wasn't the blood child of the mum or the dad, what we have for step families, for example, today. Life wasn't really like that back then. So if we think, go back 2,000 years ago into Israel, it was important for people only to mate with that one person and then to look after the children, so you didn't have all of these issues with children dying, essentially. So today we're going to explore sexual relationships. We're going to give Christian teachings. We're going to explain divergent Christian attitudes. As I said, from 2,000 years ago, the idea of having sex with only one person was very important. However, now we're in the year 2020. We have contraception, which of course is a method of stopping pregnancy from occurring. Do we still need to have these strict rules and guidelines? And this is the debate that you guys can have in your examination paper. You're going to explain different Christian attitudes towards homosexuality. And as well, homosexuality has only recently become legalised. It was, I think it was 1967. So before that, it was a sin. And again, exploring the reasons why, and really a lot of it did come from Christianity. We're going to explain and compare non-religious views as well, of course, looking at humanism UK, and atheism as well. So here are some keywords which are important for you to have. We have procreation, which is sex should only be used to reproduce as God intended. The sanctity of life is all life is holy and special as it was created by God. So that is the belief that, every single life on this planet is special. God has intended every single human to be here, and therefore life itself is so important, and the way to create life is through sex. So the sanctity of life is really saying that sexual intercourse is really sacred and holy and special because it produces life. We're going to look at adultery. So adultery is a sexual act between a married person and someone other than their marriage partner, so cheating. Premarital sex is sex before marriage. Promiscuity is having sex with multiple partners on a casual basis, so otherwise known as sleeping around. And then homosexuality is sexual attraction to members of one's own sex. In the UK, the age of consent for homosexual and heterosexual, so straight as in man and woman, is now 16. So heterosexuality, being straight, that has never, ever, ever been a crime. It's never been a sin. It's always been encouraged. Whereas if you was a gay person, then you were classed as a criminal and you were classed as, sinning against God. So that's why it's important that we now understand in the UK, homosexuality is legal and that consent, as in being able to say, yes, I'd like to have sex, is at 16 as well. Okay, so let's talk about sex. Why do people want to have sex? To have a little think. Mainly to express love for one another. Some people think it's fun. Some people think it will bring a couple closer together. And the other one is, of course, to reproduce, to have children. Now, of course, it is really important to remember the legal age is 16, so you are not allowed to have sex below the age of 16. And that really is important because, of course, if you are a woman and you become pregnant and you're age 16, it's going to be really, really, really difficult for that woman to take care of a baby. A girl, a young woman, to take care of that child. So it is important again that we're kind of raising these issues as we're discussing this topic today in religious studies. Okay, so because it is religious studies, we're going to think about God and why does God want people to have sex? And it's going back to that key term I just discussed with you, which is procreation. So God's plan is for all sexual encounters to produce new life. To produce new life, which is called procreation. Now, as I said, sex then to produce life, if you have a woman and a woman having sex, as in a lesbian couple, can that create a new life? No, it can't. Can a man having sex with a man create new life? No, it can't. So this is why homosexuality has traditionally been seen by the Christian community as wrong, because you shouldn't be having sex if it is not to produce new life. Now, that's not just looking at homosexuality, that's then looking at promiscuity, which is obviously having sex with lots of people without any commitment. Those people having sex, they do not want children, they're probably using contraception. And again, for the Christian community, that would be seen as wrong, because sex is God's gift for humans to reproduce. So they would really believe that any kind of sex which is not between a husband and wife, so it's really important that they're married as well, it's to be discouraged. The only sexual intercourse which is seen to be good and holy and sacred is between man, husband, wife, woman, so that they can then have babies and look after their babies. So mum and dad are there for their children. So of course that's a really traditional point of view, and we know, guys, that of course living in the year 2020, it's not like that anymore. We have lots of different relationships where a man and a woman may not have been married, but yet they have children, but they've still got a really great family. Or it could be that, husband and wife, they marry, they have children, the relationship breaks down, and then of course it could lead to a divorce, where then the parents are living in separate households and the children are in between two families. Now, that can be a really, really difficult thing to go through and for a family to overcome. However, there are lots of successful families who have been able to do that. So when we're discussing things today, guys, it's really important that when I'm talking about certain things, I'm not saying that one family is better than the other or one kind of sexual activity is better than the other. We're simply learning it through a Christian viewpoint, and the different kind of ideas around sexual behaviour. And remembering this kind of stems from 2,000 years ago, before condoms, before, STI testing. Again, back in 2,000 years ago, people would die from sexually transmitted infections. So again, if you have got a religious leader saying, oh no, well, God thinks that you should only have sex with one other person, again, that's protecting your life, because they didn't have antibiotics back then. So again, these teachings are produced to help people 2,000 years ago, and you can have a lot of discussion around the benefits of these teachings as well today, but of course it's about having that debate, unpicking the arguments and putting them into a context. Okay, so you need to know different Christian teachings about sexual relationships. So if you'd like to draw a two-sided table, you can do a mind map, whatever you feel comfortable with. On one side, we're going to be looking at Catholic viewpoints, where sex is holy and so should only be saved for marriage, and the reasons why. And then on the other hand, no, some disagreement there. What a liberal Christian view. So liberal kind of means more kind of contextualizing the situation and being quite adaptive towards what's going on now. So society has changed, so Christians' views should be flexible towards sex. Now, on this next slide, you've got lots of different viewpoints. You need to read the viewpoint and decide where does it go. Is this a reason to say sex is only for husband and wife? Or is this a reason to say, actually, no, we should be more accepting of different sexual behaviours? So let's look at the first one. Premarital sex devalues marriage and a sacred union between man, wife and God. Forbidding sex in a long-term relationship can cause undue stress. Sex can unite a couple in a long-term relationship. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Jesus taught the golden rule, treat others how you want to be treated. Jesus taught to love thy neighbour. Sex is a gift from God to be saved for their marriage partner. Many choose abstinence, not having sex. Sex is not the most important thing. Love can be shown in many other ways. Your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. The Bible promotes the sanctity of marriage through having sex. It is okay if the couple loves each other and are in a long-term relationship. The quote, be fruitful and increase in number. Sexual union is meant to be the consummation, so the end of a loving relationship, not a forerunner to it. And God is omnibenevolent and forgiving. So pause the video, have a little look through, see where you should put each one, and then when you're ready, hit play and I will go through the answers with you. Okay, let's go through the answers. So premarital sex devalues marriage. That would be Catholic, to be against. Forbidding sex in a long-term relationship can cause undue stress. That would be to be more liberal and accepting the fact that, yeah, okay, if you're a boyfriend or a girlfriend and you're intending to be in a marriage to one another, then to stop them having fun sex could actually cause a bit of stress between the pair. So allowing it could be acceptable if they intend to marry. Next one, sex can unite a couple in a long-term relationship. That would be liberal. Next one, thou shalt not commit adultery. That would be Catholic. Thou shalt commit. That would be Catholic, and it would also be liberal. So basically, no cheating is allowed whatsoever for any Christian, and I think for any non-religious person as well. And of course, that's from Exodus, the Ten Commandments, which was given to Moses. Jesus taught the golden rule, treat others how you want to be treated. Now that would be a liberal viewpoint, as in why should we judge people who want to have sex with one another? And no, Jesus didn't judge. Jesus is about treating people how you want to be treated, and that's what we should be doing too. Okay, Jesus taught to love thy neighbour. That would be liberal as well. When we say love thy neighbour, guys, we're not saying you should physically go and love your neighbour. Of course, it's a figure of speech, as in to say you should be kind and considerate to everybody. Everybody is your neighbour. So that's what that means. Do not take it literally. Okay, sex is a gift from God to be saved for their marriage partner. That would be the Catholic viewpoint for reasons that I've explained before. Sex is not the most important thing. Love can be shown in many other ways. Now, that'd be a Catholic viewpoint, as in, you don't need to be having sex to show your love. Instead, hold their hand, give them a cuddle, write them a card, write them a song. It's not all about sex. Okay, next one. Your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. That would be a Catholic viewpoint, as in, you should not expose your body to absolutely everybody. You should save your body for somebody who really loves you, who really respects you, and that should be your husband or your wife. Next one, the Bible promotes the sanctity of marriage through having sex. So again, that'd be a Catholic viewpoint, how I explained earlier about sex being holy and sacred. Next one, it is okay if the couple loves each other and they're in a long-term relationship. Again, that'll be a liberal viewpoint, more accepting of different, perhaps premarital sex. Next one, be fruitful and increase in number. That'll be a Catholic viewpoint, as in sex is for reproduction, for making babies, and for a husband and wife to take care of those babies. Okay, sexual union is meant to be the consummation of a loving relationship, not a forerunner to it. So that basically means, on your wedding night, that means that's when you should be having sex. You shouldn't be having sex before your wedding night. Your wedding night is obviously the time when you are finalizing your agreement to one another that you are going to be devoted purely to that one other person. So sex is really important for the Catholic viewpoint and for marriage. So that'd be a Catholic viewpoint. And next one, God is omnibenevolent, which means loving and forgiving. So again, that would be a liberal viewpoint, because it's a whole idea that, okay, say for example, you have had sex with somebody, I know you're a young man, you're falling in love with a girl, you intend to marry her, you want to marry her, so you have sex with her. She then decides she doesn't want to be with you and she goes off with somebody else. God will forgive that sin of having sex before marriage. He's not going to go, yes, that you're going to burn in hell. No, it's a mistake. Your intentions were pure. So again, that's a liberal viewpoint, the fact that we need to be more understanding towards different situations, because unfortunately, previously, it was the fact that if you have committed adultery, or if you have premarital sex, that you're going to go to hell when you die. And that's a really, really scary prospect. And a lot of people started to turn away from the church and say, well, I don't want to belong to an organisation that scares people into that way of thinking. So recently, and not all of the church has been, only certain parts of the church, but more recently, the church is very, very understanding and accepting of, different things that happen within life. And obviously sex is one of those big things for people. Okay, so now we've got exam questions based on the things that we've just learned about. So you have explain divergent Christian attitudes towards relationships outside of marriage. That would be a B question worth 4 marks. You'd give point, evidence, point, explain, point, explain. And then the C question, explain 2 divergent Christian attitudes towards relationships outside of marriage. So again, guys, divergent means different. So you need to have the Catholic viewpoint. If I go back here, so all of the answers you've got on the Catholic side, all of the answers you've got on the liberal side, those are your divergent viewpoints. It's really important that you have those. Okay, how do I get rid of this? Go away. There we go. Okay, next up, we're now going to look at divergent Christian viewpoints and non-religious attitudes towards homosexuality. So homosexuality, sex attraction to members of one own sex. And we are going to be looking at different viewpoints. Now, unfortunately, guys, as you can see here, we've got God hates fags, fags die, all of that kind of stuff. That is not the Catholic Church. That is the Westboro Baptist Church that image is from. They are a group of really kind of fundamentalist, extremist Christians who live in America. And they are really against homosexuality. Not only that, they're really against soldiers as well, like American soldiers. They will go and petition at their funerals for if they've died in combat, and they will hold signs like this up around homosexuality. So that is, one really extremist group of Christians. And then on the other side, guys, we've got other Christians who accept homosexuality. We can see some Christians are gay, get over it. Now, I went to a Pride March a couple of years ago, and there were so many religious groups there holding signs and, we are sorry for the way the church has treated you, because, beforehand, they were seen as sinners, as criminals, just for falling in love with somebody who is the same sex, which is, nobody chooses to be gay. And an argument would be, well, God has created all human beings. God has created gay people. So how then can the church say, no, you're a horrible, terrible person, you're going to hell? It doesn't make a lot of sense. Now, that argument I've just put forward, God created homosexuals, they would then say, no, he didn't. They're deviating away from the Bible and what the Bible teaches, and they're sinners. And again, I'm just kind of illustrating the different viewpoints and the different arguments that there are in the world. So again, we're going to have, you can do a mind map, extended writing, or you can do a table, up to you guys. We've got Christian reasons against homosexuality, Christian reasons to then disagree with those, to accept homosexuality, and then we've got non-religious responses as well. Now, really, you do need to break that up as well, as in non-religious responses to agree and to disagree with homosexuality. Okay, so again, you've got lots of different viewpoints here. If you'd like to press pause on the video now, you can work through them, decide where they go, and then when you're ready, press play, and I'll go through the answers with you. Press pause. Boop. Okay, now I'm going through the answers. Okay, so first of all, we've got situation ethics. Now, guys, this is an ethical theory that you need to know about. Situation ethics is really, really important, and you can use it all over the exam paper. And it basically is a way of deciding what is the right thing to do in a situation. So when we're looking at ethics and ethical behaviour, it's asking the questions, what is right and what is wrong, what is good for humanity, what is bad for humanity. And these questions have been asked for thousands and thousands of years, and situation ethics is one of those answers to those questions. And the answer is, you do whatever the most loving thing is. Now, that has been taken from the teachings of Jesus. Again, looking at love thy neighbour as thyself is all about, you need to love people. And if you love one another, then your actions will always be good. That's what they would argue. Now, it comes from a gentleman called Joseph Fletcher, who was writing in the 1960s. And again, he noticed the fact that in the 60s, lots of people were turning away from the church because they thought that it was very quite, one rule and that's it, quite unflexible. So Joseph Fletcher, as a priest, really wanted to change his way of thinking and said, hang on, if we actually go back to the New Testament, we look at the Bible, we look at the messages of Jesus, it's about love and it's about compassion. Now, stretch and challenge the love that he associates with this. Because if you think about love is such a complex term. I love my cat, and I love my car, and I love my fiance, and I love my sisters, and I love my students. Now, if you look at all those loves, they're very, very, very different. My love for my sister will be different to my love for my students. So the love that situation ethics talks about is a love called agape. And agape is Latin for sacrificial love. And again, if we think about God loved humanity, sacrificing his son for the sins of humankind, then again, it's that link to the teachings of Jesus. So if we're thinking about homosexuality, I don't know, should we accept it or should we reject it? Situation ethics would say to accept homosexuality, to love people, for who they are, and instead of, criminalizing them, we need to accept them. So that would be your Christian to accept it. Okay, next one is goes against the sanctity of life. Sanctity of life means all life is holy and sacred. So that would be your reason to be against homosexuality, because, okay, two men, two ladies, they cannot produce life naturally, and therefore it goes against the sacredness of life. Next one, God gave us free will. That would be to accept it. We've all got the ability to choose how we respond to things. Or it could be also be asked. You could use it for Catholic being against. Again, I've got free will to say no, I disagree with homosexuality. So it can be vice versa. Okay, God is omnibenevolent, forgiving. That'd be to accept it. You've then got the lesbian and gay Christian movement of 1976. They fought for equal rights and respect for their family units. So that'd be to accept it. Okay, consenting adults should be free to share sexual relationships as long as there is no harm. Now, that would be a non-religious viewpoint, especially linking into Humanism UK. Now, Humanism UK, formerly known as the British Humanist Association, they are all about doing whatever makes you feel happy as long as nobody is harmed. So if it makes you happy to love somebody of the same sex and it doesn't hurt anybody in the process, then go for it. That is a humanist viewpoint for your non-religious to accept it. Okay, British values. Now, British values, of course, include democracy, rule of law, tolerance, mutual respect. All of the British values, guys, is going to be to accept, and it's non-religious. Next one, St. Paul condemns homosexuality as it is shameful. So obviously that would be a Christian reason against it. Okay, homosexuality has been legal since 1967, civil partnerships since 2002, and adoption since 2005. That would be a non-religious to accept it. When we look at non-religious stuff, it's important that we look at legislation. So think about, whenever you're going to write about non-religious viewpoints, think about Humanism UK and the laws and British values. They're the three key things that you guys should be including in your exam answers. Okay, next, the Bible states, do not lie with a man as one lies with a woman. That is detestable, from Leviticus. Now, guys, that is a really strong quote to use, a good quote to use for when you are exploring Christian reasons to be against it. Now, Leviticus was written, it's part of the Old Testament, so it was given to Moses. I think Leviticus was given to Moses. Don't quote me on that, though. But of course, it was thousands and thousands of years ago, before the time of Jesus. So again, you can really unpick that. Well, it's a strong argument because it's based on, the word of God, and we can't disregard the word of God, because that means, do we disregard the whole Bible? And it opens up a can of worms, really. So therefore we should listen to this. However, on the other hand, no, this is a weak argument. It is outdated, and it was written in a time that needed perhaps the growth of population, the growth of humankind, and therefore promoted sex that would create new life instead of sex that didn't. Yeah, so that's a good quote you can play with in the exam. Okay, goes against be fruitful and multiply. So that would be a reason against Christian. Of course, sex is there for procreation, and gay people, unfortunately, cannot procreate. And again, appraise it. However, this is a weak argument because, in modern times, we have IVF, in vitro fertilization, where, babies and life can be created through the advancements in science. So again, on the other hand, we are still being fruitful and multiplying, but just doing it in different ways. So again, this is what you need to be thinking when you're looking at these quotes, you're looking at these viewpoints, you're thinking, oh, okay, well, what can I do with this? Okay, every sperm is sacred. That is a Catholic teaching, guys. It is not the Church of England or Anglican or anything like that. It's very much Catholic, and that would be against. And again, that's the whole belief that, you know, sperm was created by God for new life. That's it. God created man and woman to be married, as in the example, Adam and Eve in Genesis. So, of course, that'd be against. Jesus taught to love thy neighbour. That'd be Christian reason for. Next one, homosexuality undermines the family unit. Now, you can use that for a Catholic reason against and a non-religious reason against. Many non-religious people might have homophobic thoughts and ideas, but not based on religion, but based on the whole idea, well, no, it should only be man and wife. Yes, you could use it from a non-religious viewpoint. Next one, Jesus taught the parable of the Good Samaritan. Now, if you don't know this parable, go and do some research, please. You need to know this one, that would be a reason to accept it. And then a same-sex couple cannot procreate, have children, and that is what God made sex for, so that would be against it. Now, some more to add to the non-religious to reject. You could say things as well about an older generation. So you tend to find that the older generation, and of course I'm not saying that every older person thinks this way, of course I'm not, but you do tend to find, you know, some nans and granddads perhaps saying, oh, you know, I'm not sure of a homosexual couple, I don't agree with it. And that might be because they were born and living in a time when it was a crime. So for them, it's kind of, you know, they've been socialised and brought up with the idea that homosexuality is wrong and is a crime. So you could talk about that. You could also talk about cultural reasons. So predominantly, you tend to find African Caribbean cultures disagree with homosexuality, and that tend to basically be because they're very quite matriarchal, and patriarchal families are very much used to a man and a woman being in the family, as opposed to two women or two men. So again, you can talk about cultural reasons to be against it as well. Now, it is important to say that, of course, homophobia is illegal in this country. It's protected under the 2010 Equality Act, which makes it unlawful to discriminate anybody based on their sexuality, their gender, their race, their religion, everything like that, guys. So any homophobic, any kind of discrimination is treated as a crime. And if you compare that, you know, to before 1967, it was completely the other way around. It was a crime to be gay. You can really see the social change of our society. Okay, so here's some more information. Catholics, so God created man and woman to be married, same-sex couple cannot procreate, homosexuality under the family unit. All this is important. Some liberal Catholics state you can be homosexual as long as you are celibate, meaning you do not have homosexual intercourse. And I'm going to talk about on the next slide what Pope Francis has said recently. Leviticus. This one we haven't spoken about. Whoever sins sexually sins against their own body. Now, you can use this for homosexuality. You can use this for adultery, so having sex with somebody other than your marriage partner. And you can also use this quote for premarital sex as well. So that's a really good quote to have in your little bag of quotes. So I wanted to draw attention to Pope Francis. He is our current Pope for the Catholic Church. And he said in 2016 that the Roman Catholic Church should apologise to gay people for the way it has treated them. So he told reporters that the Church had no right to judge the gay community and should show them respect. He also said the Church should seek forgiveness from other people it had marginalised, such as women, the poor, children forced into labour. So, you know, this Pope, he's really kind of taken it back to Jesus, as in love thy neighbour, the Good Samaritan, the Golden Rule. And Miss Blatch just had a conversation. She said that this Pope is really focused on the actions of Christians today, and because that is what God is watching and what God will judge you upon. And then when you die and your soul goes to be judged, it's either heaven or hell. And you'll be granted with heaven if your actions have been good. So this is really, you know, really quite profound for the Pope to come out and say this. So the Pope has been held in by many in the gay community for his positive attitudes towards homosexuals. So of course, lots of LGBTIQ plus people are like, woo, go on, Pope. But some conservative Catholics, like the ones we've just discussed, have criticised him for making comments that they say are ambiguous about sexual morality, which basically means he hasn't, this has kind of opened up a lot of questions around, okay, so do we accept homosexuality? Do we, what do we do? It is important also to note, though, guys, even though he said that the church should apologise for the way that they treated him, as in, you're going to go to hell kind of stuff. In 2013, the Pope reaffirmed the Roman Catholic Church position that homosexual families are still not favoured. If you're gay and you seek forgiveness from God and you remain celibate, the Pope is saying, yeah, okay, we accept you. So that's kind of going back to the liberal Catholic stuff. So it's not all, the Pope is fully supportive of the LGBTQI plus family. Instead, he's just kind of saying, well, we're just going to stop being very proactive in our discrimination of you. So yeah, he doesn't support same-sex families, and he doesn't support the actual sexual act of gay people. He's just saying, if you're gay and you're quiet, essentially, who am I to judge you? Which again, isn't great, but it is a step forward. Okay, different Christians, we've just spoken about all of this, guys. We've covered all of this, so go through that. And yeah, non-religious viewpoints, we've gone through that as well. So if we just quickly look, oh, sorry guys, this here is the old logo. They're now called Humanism UK. So yeah, they fully accept same-sex relationships as long as there is consent, there's no harm. It's their personal choice. Love is love. That's a really good phrase to use. And as well, guys, it's this whole kind of debate about, is a person gay because they've been brought up as gay, or is a person gay because they've been born gay? Now, guys, the first thing I said there is wrong. You can never be brought up as gay. You either fancy whoever you fancy or you don't. So that is an incorrect way of thinking. Lots of research has been put into this. It's the fact that you are just born that way, quoting Lady Gaga. If you're born that way, how can you be discriminated for it? It's wrong. Okay, so reasons to reject homosexuality. People are afraid of what they do not understand and they're not used to. Kind of the same as racism. Some atheists are similar to humanists. They oppose homosexuality because particular generations, some oppose due to cultural backgrounds. We just discussed that. Okay, guys, so you needed to give Christian teachings about sexual relationships, and we looked at kind of 3 different types: premarital, adultery, homosexuality, and also, within marriage, marital sex, which is the one that Christians do prefer. We need to explain the different viewpoints, viewpoints for our homosexuality, and the non-religious views as well. Okay, that's what you needed to do today. So that is the end of today's lesson. I hope you have enjoyed it. I'm now going to try and stop sharing my screen, stop presenting. Ta-da, here I am back again. Lovely. If you've got any questions, let me know. Always here to answer your questions. And as I said, I've discussed a lot of different viewpoints, and I'm not saying one is better than the other unless it's lawful. So I have quite said, why should we discriminate, blah, blah, blah. It's because the law of the land states no discrimination, okay? But when we're looking at non-religious and Christian viewpoints, very, very open, and that's what you have to be like in your examination paper. You're like a lawyer and you're going through people's arguments and evidence and, picking out what's strong about it, what's weak about it, and putting it in your exam answer for your D question. Okay, so I hope you have a lovely day and hopefully we will see you soon. Bye.